Black Phone 2 is a surprise sequel to the surprise hit of 2021. Does it measure up to the same delivery, or does it falter? Let's find out. Que lo que, mi gente del Caribe. Thank you guys all so much for joining me. I appreciate your support as always. Today we're going to be talking about Black Phone 2. This stars Mason Thames, Madeleine McGraw, and Ethan Hawke. And it picks up following Finn and his sister Gwen when she begins experiencing nightmarish visions as the grabber taunts them and they set out to find missing children from many years ago. I was looking forward to this film. I was not expecting this movie to be made or released, but I am so glad that it was. I was deeply moved by this film, which I found kind of surprising because I didn't think that this movie would take that type of a turn. But before we get into the parts of it that I found to be most emotionally compelling, let me talk about some of the technicalities of this film that I was just in love with throughout the entire experience. First of all, the imagery is deeply unsettling, and there are so many moments that you just feel trapped and kind of claustrophobic, and it is so well done that it fully integrates you into the experience, and I was enthralled the entire time. Not only that, but this movie doesn't focus so much on jump scares, but instead it takes quite the interest in providing masterful tension building. There is so much tension throughout the entirety of this film, and there's not a whole lot of jump scares. I would say maybe there was 2, maybe 3 at the most, but for the most part, the fear that this film is trying to convey and evoke is fully within the tension of the situation. It's not something jumping out at you. Sometimes it's nothing to be seen at all. It's more about the atmosphere that they are creating and the way that the performances elevate that atmosphere. Mason Thames, he's once again incredible here, but I really appreciated that they gave Madeleine McGraw a more active role to play in this film. The sister has so much more to do because she kind of feels like the main character of this film. And not that Mason Thames is sidelined. He still has enough to do, but she is definitely more so the focus here. And it is really refreshing and fun to see. But what I really appreciated and loved was the chemistry. I really felt like they were real life siblings in the real world. They played these parts so well, and they got along together so well that you just buy into this sibling relationship, and you buy into this loyalty that they have to one another, and given the trauma that they've experienced as well. There's also some really stunning visuals and impeccable use of Super 8 cameras. I loved the grainy mixed with the slightly modern look of it. It just added to the unsettling feeling that the film evokes, especially in sequences of the nightmarish visions when the Super 8 camera is used. It is so unsettling when you see some of the more graphic elements of the film, and it works so well. I was like nail biting. But let's get into the more heartfelt elements that I was briefly mentioning earlier. I was so surprised and taken aback with how emotional this film felt. It's very deeply emotional and thoughtful in terms of the themes that it's exploring. It talks about grief. It talks about trauma, particularly the trauma from the first film, but it looks at it as a whole of the process of grief and how do we process both grief and trauma and move through that season of life when everything feels so heavy and dark and difficult. And I was taken away by how they did this, especially through the perspective of this sibling connection between Mason Thames and Madeleine McGraw. They, as I mentioned, are so believable, and the way that they kind of come alongside each other was really beautiful to see and moving. I found myself honestly in tears, which I was surprised. I did not expect to cry in this film, but I was crying. I was crying. I was wiping my eyes, wiping away the tears. It really got to me, and I found it to be really touching and surprisingly moving. This movie definitely stayed with me more than I expected it to. As one more positive, and this is just a small one that I really appreciated. Whenever I go see a film, usually there's some sort of a inaccurate representation of Christianity and how Christians behave in general. There's usually a stereotype that's given to the audience, which I find really annoying because I never feel that I fit with that stereotype. And there are two characters in this film that are that stereotype, and they're really obnoxious, and I hate them, and it's really annoying to see them on screen, but obviously they're there for a reason. But it wasn't as a jab. I think the intent was to kind of show some polar opposite distinction here, because on the flip of that, there's about 3 other actual Christian characters that I felt represented Christianity well and in a more positive light. And so that's a small thing. If you're religious, you'll appreciate that. If you're not, you don't care, and that's all good. But I appreciated it, and I found that to be really encouraging. In terms of issues with the film, I will say there are some logic gaps that occur throughout. For example, without spoiling anything, there's a frozen lake, and there's a character that needs to jump in this frozen lake at a certain point, and they're kind of fine afterwards. There's no sense of like, are they shivering? Are they going to get sick with pneumonia or something? There's nothing really explored there. They're just kind of fine right after that. And so I thought that was a bit of a unfortunate logic gap that could have been easily polished. But other than that, I really had no issues with this film. I loved it. I was so impressed with it. I honestly thought it might be better than the first one, but they are two different vibes. I will say that. The first one feels very different from what they're doing here. But what I really respected is that they were doing something different with this film. And for me, it succeeded. They did something different and it was effective. And I left this film thinking that was a memorable experience. It was a surprisingly moving experience and a very tense experience. So for all of those reasons, I'm going to give Black Phone 2 a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I know that a lot of people are rating this one a little bit lower. It still has generally positive reviews, but this movie just really worked for me. What can I say? I'm going to be the minority here to rate it so high, but I loved it. I highly recommend checking this one out if you're a horror fan. If you like the first one, I think you'll enjoy this one, despite it being a little bit different in its approach. But it's effective. I really appreciated it, and I think that you might as well. So thank you guys so much for joining me and for watching this episode. If you like this, you can click that like and subscribe button for more content just like this, and look forward to another review coming soon.